celebrating 25 years of fearless and independent journalism. Hello, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us from wherever you may be. We are live here from our studios in Kokomlemle on digital address GA0992539. Here's what's coming up. The coronavirus infections continue in a steady surge, reaching 136 in Ghana. Updates as the court give National Identification Authority the green light to continue registration for Ghana cards despite the raging spread of the disease. We'll also take you to the Ashanti regional capital, where all markets are being disinfected. UK Prime Minister tests positive for coronavirus days after he issued a stay-at-home order. We're live in the UK, where the Health Secretary has also tested positive. We'll also be live in Germany, where Parliament has approved economic boosting packages, and the United States, which is leading in the world with the highest confirmed coronavirus cases. Also, how do you stay sane in the turbulence of coronavirus? We focus on mental health as we connect with experts to answer your questions. My name is Kojo Yangsa. We're on DSTV channel 421. On GoTV, we're on channel 144, and we also stream live on YouTube. Send us a WhatsApp on 0540 109009. Right then, let's get started. President Akufo-Addo will this evening address Parliament in what some believe will be his announcement of a decision on calls for a lockdown in the wake of the coronavirus spread. Now, this afternoon, Ghana's confirmed cases have increased by 4 to bring the total cases to 164 infections since the outbreak 2 weeks ago. We're going to be joined shortly by the head of our health desk for details of the new cases. First, though, let's turn our attention to events at the health facilities that are managing this situation. A number of them have made public appeals for support as they are running out of essential logistics. The 37 Military Hospital, the Greater Accra Regional Hospital, are but a couple of the facilities that have gone public with their plight. Listen to the medical director at Ridge Hospital, Dr. Emmanuel Slorfenyo, and the commander for the 37 Military Hospital, Brigadier General Ni Aja Obudai.
How many patients are you currently?
Our center currently, we have 4 of the patients under our care.
Okay. And this has been the case since they were brought? The same patients since they were?
Yes, you know, first we started with 1, and then it went to 2, and eventually the 4th patient was transferred to our center. So that is the situation. We have not discharged any of them yet because we are waiting for their final lab results. They are generally doing well, and we are waiting for their final lab results. And as and when the results come and everything is fine, they will be discharged home.
Do you know when the results will come in?
Now the testing centers are a bit overwhelmed, and so some of the results sometimes delays a little. So I cannot predict when the results will come in. But I do know that once the results come and everything is fine, they will be discharged.
We have 136 cases right now. It means that we will need more space to handle them. Would you recommend, with your facility being one of the foremost facilities for this management of this, would you recommend expansion or conversion of some of your facilities into holding rooms for this purpose?
The thing is that it is not, in terms of, because of the highly infectious nature of this condition, it is not generally advisable to combine those patients with other categories of patients in the same facility. So luckily, by the design of our place, our holding center is away from this main facility. So this is where we look after routine staffs, routine patients who have other conditions, and then those who have been confirmed are also looked after on the other side. It behoves on government and our leaders to take the final decision, but when they are mixed together in the same facility, it may not augur well but we leave the final decision to government.
But is there a need to expand facilities there to be able to deal with the matter?
Yes, there is the need. There is definitely the need. What is happening is that for us, we are talking here now, we do know that there is one new facility that has not been that is about to be operationalized. Government has taken a decision that that facility will be used solely now for these cases, and that's the Ghana East Hospital. And that's a new hospital, about 100-bed capacity. So that hospital now is at our disposal to be used solely for this condition, and the hospital will revert to regular use after this epidemic is over. Greater Accra Regional Hospital, to express my sincere thanks to this gesture. Really, we've received a couple of donations, but the particular things that really has been a challenge to us has been the disposable gowns, because before the staffs will prepare themselves and then enter where the patients are, they have to be in these outfits, and you wear these outfits only once at a time, and once you wear, you discard. So it means that the usage is very high, and so it's been a big drain and on our own resources and also on the resources of the government. And it is in this respect that we are so grateful that you've made this presentation and you made this donation to us. We can only assure you that we'll put them to good use. We will make sure that they are not abused, they are used the way they are expected to be used. We also want to use this opportunity to thank the general public, those who have supported us already, but we are asking for more support, because this is a fight that we are fighting together. It is either we fight and win together or we lose it together.
Initiatives, okay? So we have done that to at least augment what is going on. So up until now, that's what we have done. We still need inputs to get things going, okay, by way of personal protective equipment, all the things that go with it, sanitizers, whatever. We need all inputs to get things going. For the nature of what we're dealing with, it is a public health department that is actually on call, because it's a public health emergency, it's a pandemic. Okay, so it's a public health specialist, public health physicians with all their attendants, disease control, surveillance. It is a public health issue. So broadly speaking, it's public health. But of course, they don't work alone. All the departments come into play, medical typically, division of medical come into play. All of us are also in play, standing in order and in line as the duties come on. So we are so it's not like public health and they are alone in the business. We're all on ground, working together to get the things sorted.
This week, the Chinese billionaire who owns the online shopping site Alibaba donated 100,000 face masks, 20,000 medical test kits and 100 medical protective suits. But it appears those are still not enough, and the hospitals continue to reel under the pressure. Chief of Staff at the Presidency, Akosua Fremose Opare, has also expressed worry about the continuous spread of the coronavirus in Ghana when the United Bank of Africa, UBA, presented to government a cash donation of $350,000 to aid Ghana's fight against the pandemic. Listen to the board chairman of UBA, Kwame Bartels.
Is very, very impressed with the kind of leadership that has been provided so far by His Excellency President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo in combating the menace of the coronavirus. We, as a bank with branches throughout the whole of Africa, have voted 14 million United States dollars to support the efforts at combating the virus. We have, as a bank in Ghana, provided support to the tune of $75,000 through the Association of Bankers to help in the fight against the virus. We are so impressed with the leadership that has been provided so far by His Excellency that the bank has, in addition, decided to add $250,000 towards the efforts being made by His Excellency in Ghana, bringing the total to $350,000 United States dollars to support these efforts. We believe that so far the efforts that have been made will yield the results that we all expect.
On behalf of His Excellency, the President of the Republic, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, I wish to express our profound gratitude to UBA for this contribution. Indeed, the coronavirus pandemic that has found its way into our shores is a worrying thing for our president. He has had to take certain measures that fortunately has been well received by the people of Ghana. Not just the leadership of our religious bodies, but professional associations, the markets, women, transporters, many other identifiable groups in this country are rallying behind the efforts that are being made by His Excellency the President to combat this coronavirus. This contribution that you have made will go a long way towards acquisition of materials and other logistical requirements that is needed as we move forward in this journey. We want you to send our sincere appreciation to not just the bank members here, but also to UBA Africa headquarters. Now, we appreciate the efforts, the whole of Africa, but our contribution, we appreciate it very much, and it's timely. And we really want to show that it will be used for the purpose that is being intended to. Thank you very much, and may God bless you and bless your bank. And we also ask for God's blessing for the efforts that His Excellency is putting in place to save the people of Ghana from this menace. Thank you very much.
Right, now in studio with me is, of course, the head of our health desk, Fred Smith. Fred, always a pleasure to see you. So what is the latest? Where are our numbers as we speak?
Well, the latest figures show 136 infections so far, officially 3 dead, and then we have 1 person who has recovered. That's great news. The other thing is 78 of those who have been infected are persons who traveled into the country and were quarantined. And so we have the biggest number coming from there. But the normal surveillance got 54 people, and these 54 are doing well. The other thing is we have over 1,000 persons that we are tracking. Some of them have been tested, others have not been tested. But we have a good number who have added to the local transmissions. And the prayer is that we're able to halt the local transmissions, because we've been able to deal with the imported cases. Once we get our full grips on the local transmissions, I'm sure we would have been getting very close to winning the fight.
Now, as you go around, doing all of these stories, how do you assess the average Ghanaian's understanding of what's going on and what they need to do to stay safe? Do people get it?
Yes, I'll tell you the story of a man I met at the airport. He's Ghanaian, but is based in the United Kingdom. Traveled here and wanted to, he came to see his family, he says, and that he's now going back. Now our airports have been shut, and he got to the airport, officials say, no, you can't travel because this is the situation we are in. And this man says, well, he knows nothing about the closure of airports or anything. He just came, he has to go to work on Friday in the UK, so he's just going. So there are some Ghanaians who are not listening to the radio, they're not watching the television, they're not reading online or the newspapers to know what is going on. And a lot of things are happening, Kojo. If you take your eye off the ball for even one day, I'm sure you come back and realize that so many things have happened that you didn't know. I think this is the time for everybody to pay attention to the media and to the official communication channels, so that at least they get to know what is going on. If there's a step you have to take, you take that step. Currently ongoing is a debate as to whether we lock down or we stay. And I don't recall a time when we had a lockdown in Ghana. So I don't know how it will look like. But if you are interested in what the media is reporting, they would have told you how the lockdown is like in other countries, so it helps you to know what you have to do ahead of a lockdown or during the lockdown. And if there's going to be a lockdown, what do you need? Do you have to stock your house with food and other items which will help you, or there's a way that you'll be able to go around it? I mean, everybody going out to shop will mean panic buying, and things will run out in the markets, and that we don't want that to happen. And so it's good to get information to be able to react to events happening around you.
Now, so far, the cases that we have recorded have been either in the Greater Accra region or in the Ashanti region. Is that still the case, or have any other cases popped up in other regions?
So far, we've not been told if any case has come outside these two areas. And so that in itself is also very good because it's restricted to these two areas.
But are we testing in other places?
Yes, I do understand there was a case in Northeast where some residents suspected someone who had returned from Italy and was coughing and showing certain signs. So they called the officials. This person was taken into a health facility, samples taken, and then brought to Accra, tested, and it showed, was it Accra? I think Kumasi or so. It showed negative.
Right.
Okay, so people are alert. So I'm not so sure if the surveillance is taking care of the other cities, but so long as people are alert and are reporting some of these things, I'm sure those places will also be catered for. And once a case comes from there, then it means it's spreading to the entire country. So far, we can only thank God that it's limited to Accra and Kumasi, so that we deal with what we have. Fingers crossed, fingers crossed. Let's hope that these numbers stay close to what they are for now. Thank you so much. Fred Smith is the head of our health desk right here at Joy News. Now, an Accra High Court has ruled that the National Identification Authority is entitled to continue with its work of registering Ghanaians, and a Court of Appeal Judge Anthony Opong, who is sitting as an additional High Court judge, held that the application for injunction is based on a grievous error and misunderstanding of the President's social distancing directive. Two citizens, Mark Oliver Kevo and Emmanuel Okra, filed this case in court, asking that the NIA be stopped from carrying out its registration exercise.
To take this particular one as opposed to a pending injunction that is on them. That is exactly
but that injunction hasn't been moved yet. As it stands, once
so there is an
10-day one elapses.
But you see, the thing is that once the 10-day one elapses, there's that interlocutory injunction that already would have been filed. And so they will still have to overturn that particular one before. At the heart of all this, I believe, is a common sense approach. We have a pandemic facing us. And if we have put in structures that say social distancing should be the thing, why would we want to endanger the lives of the people of the Eastern region? At least for the past 10 days, we've held and made sure that the NIA has not been able to do what it wanted to do. There's an order that is operating against them. So we leave it to the judgment of the general public. And it's the Ghanaian citizen that is at stake, not us.
At the end of the court, what was that banter with the deputy AG about?
Oh, I think that he sought to make certain comments which were not true and which were not born out of facts, and I sought to put it out clearly. He tried to attribute certain statements to me which were not true. What I said, I have put out, and that's one I can defend. But what I haven't said, he could not put in my mouth. And I think it was important that that was brought to the attention of the court. You don't impugn the integrity of another lawyer in court. And I think that at the end of the day, he himself later on came to say that, let's call it, let's just let this issue die. I said, no problem. But you don't do that when you know that the basis of what you are saying is not true. And I pointed it out to him that if you go to my Facebook page, you will see what I wrote. It was very clear that we were going to discontinue. That was it.
Right, and that was the latest from that court case. So, a quick break, and when we come back, even more on The Pulse. Stay exactly where you are. Welcome back. Now, are you using the right PPE to protect yourself from COVID-19? In the heat of the pandemic, it's also necessary to ensure that we're all buying the right materials to protect our health. Speaking to JoyNews' CEO of the E-Tank Group Ghana Limited, Eric Wache, tells us how to detect authentic surgical masks from fake ones. Now, he said this during a donation made by Tobinco Pharmaceuticals, E-Tank Group and Gandor Cosmetics to the Ministry of Health.
Partners have taught us how to even identify what is a good, protective, face mask. Face masks in town, which actually don't give any protection. What our partners in China told us was that to be able to identify which one is can protect against the virus, we just turn it this way and pour a little water here. The water must not seep through. Once it seeps through, that means that it's not a very good one. That is the initial stage. That's the water test. Then, if you cut it into two, you will see a lining, a white lining in between. That white lining is what actually gives the protection. So, if it is not there, that means that it's not a very genuine one. That is the middle lining test. And the last test is the fire test. You just light it with a little bit of matches or lighter. It immediately comes on, it must go off. It melts off. Once it catches fire, that means that it's not very good. That is what our partners told us that we should use to identify which mask is very good. We are donating 2,040 pieces, and it's worth about 8,200 cedis.
Right, now the CEO of Tobinco Group of Companies, Samuel Amo Tobin, is also urging all corporate organizations to come on board and fight the pandemic. He's also encouraging people to cultivate the habit of taking in immune boosters to keep them healthy.
We seriously ask our colleague business people. This is a pandemic that has reached us unaware. We're not expecting this anywhere in our life. So the people that we got our riches or our monies from, this is the time we need to support them. So I urge all business colleagues, business friends, corporate companies to give out. We are in the pharma world, so we give more of medicines. Also, we should extend our hands to the rural areas where the vulnerables are, where the poor people are. Today we give out hand sanitizers, which is the normal norm now. And we also give us medicines that boost our immune system, like glutamines, zinc vites, and vitamin C. These are very necessary now. And we also give us some face masks and hand gloves. These are some of the things that we give. Yeah, and we give this Veronica bucket.
The new model.
The new model. These are some of the, and this the total amounts are around 251,000 Ghana cedis. As a pharmaceutical company, we ask people to take in more vitamin C and take in more liquids, more water. Take in immune booster that if you can. Something that we don't need to let the virus get into us before we apply some immune boosters. Like the BG glutamine, it's a glutamine tablets with vitamin B12 and B6. When you can get any immune booster at this time, is good.
Right, let's have a look at what's happening around the globe. The US now has more confirmed cases of coronavirus than any other country, with over 85,500 positive tests. Now, according to the latest figures collated by Johns Hopkins University, the US has overtaken China, which has 81,782 cases, and Italy, which has 80,589 cases. But with almost 1,300 COVID-19 related fatalities, the U.S. death toll lags behind China, which has 3,291, and Italy, which sadly has 8,215. Here's a report on that by Al Jazeera, highlighting the United States situation.
Here have died from the coronavirus. With no vaccine and no proven drug treatment, the country's top medical experts say social restrictions are the only way to curb the rate of infection.
Whenever you put the clamps down and shut things down, you do it for two reasons. You do it to prevent the further spread, this we call mitigation, but you also do it to buy yourself time to get better prepared for what might be a rebound.
In New York, which has been hardest hit by the outbreak, hospitals are becoming overwhelmed, with worse predicted to come. The need for ventilators and respirators for patients, as well as protective gear for doctors and nurses, remains acute. One New York City hospital recorded 13 coronavirus deaths in 24 hours.
We will vanquish this virus.
But President Donald Trump continues to question the stay-at-home orders affecting much of the U.S. population, saying he wants Americans getting back to their jobs soon for the sake of the economy.
They have to go back to work. Our country has to go back. Our country is based on that. And I think it's going to happen pretty quickly.
The world's biggest economy has suffered a sudden and significant shock as consumer spending has dried up, shops and restaurants have been closed, and restrictions have been placed on movement. A record 3.2 million American workers filed for unemployment benefits last week.
Well, this number of new claims for unemployment benefits is truly unprecedented, and it represents the unprecedented nature of what we're going through right now. During the financial crisis and Great Recession, the highest or maximum number of new claims for unemployment benefits we saw was approaching, let's say, the 700,000 mark.
Help for struggling workers and their families is on the way as the U.S. Senate passed a $2 trillion stimulus and relief bill. The House of Representatives will vote on the legislation Friday. The measure gives many U.S. households a cash infusion of $1,200 or more, depending on income and family size. It also increases and extends unemployment benefits. As new centers of coronavirus transmission emerge around the country, the pandemic and the economy both seem certain to get worse before they get better. Rob Reynolds, Al Jazeera.
Let's go across to Germany, where their stranded citizens were airlifted, including those in Ghana, back to their home country. Thomas Sparrow is political correspondent with our partners DW. He joins us live now from home. Thomas, good to see you. Let's start with the very latest update from Germany. Parts of your country are still in partial lockdown. How is that affecting your citizens?
Germany is today in an important situation. There are around 47,000 cases here in the country. In fact, it was 2 months ago today that Germany reported its very first case in the southern part of the country in Bavaria. So you can see what the progress has been in these last 2 months. And if you look at these 2 months, there has also been a big political reaction by leaders in this country. It goes from those orders or those decisions that the German government made to try and restrict public life in this country, although the German government didn't go as far as imposing a general lockdown in this country. And it also goes hand in hand with other measures that the government and the parliament have taken to try and make sure that the impact of the coronavirus is not felt as badly as many predict, especially when it comes to businesses that could be particularly affected. So this is the situation now in Germany. If you look a bit more broadly in Europe, the main spotlight today is probably in the United Kingdom, where the Prime Minister Boris Johnson has tested positive for coronavirus, as well as the health secretary. So you can see that it's not only in Germany where important things have been happening, it's also in other parts of the continent as well.
Right, so what's the latest with Angela Merkel?
So the main political reaction coming from the German government has been in a sort of series of steps, if you will, because first Angela Merkel gave a very important speech, televised speech actually, which is something very unusual for her, where she asked people to participate, to make sure that they understood that this is also about them. So it's not only about the government making decisions, it's also about the people making sure that they, if possible, can stay at home, that they can restrict their public appearances, that they can make sure they're aware of what the risks are and what their responsibilities are as well. And then that came hand in hand with that decision that I just mentioned to restrict movement, for example, when it comes to more than 2 people. So those are prohibited here in Germany, meetings of more than 2 people, although again there is no formal lockdown, which means that people essentially can still go out to work or shopping or go to the pharmacy. But indeed, the German government and German authorities have been asking people to try and be very careful and understand that this is also about them. And this goes hand in hand, by the way, with proposals that German people have been doing. It's not only about staying at home, it's also about being creative. And one element, for example, that we saw was a very big hackathon, so a digital competition to try and find solutions. And there were big discussions there. Around 40,000 people took part to decide and to develop proposals, for example, to better manage hospital resources or to help people's mental health in times of isolation. So you can see that it's not only about waiting at home and not doing much, it's about understanding what the responsibilities are, both at the government level, but also at the citizens' level.
Now, what is the situation in Germany regarding medical supplies, personal protective equipment, ventilators, respirators, even testing kits? Is Germany experiencing any shortages?
Germany has, and if you ask officials, that's what they've been saying all along, that Germany has a very good public health system, and that's one of the reasons why, for example, Germany has fewer cases than other countries in Europe. But it is obviously the case that when you have such a high number of cases, we're talking about 47,000, that puts a strain on the public health system irrespective of where you are. And that's why German authorities have been very much aware of what's at stake and trying to see what changes can be made and how authorities can actually help doctors and nurses to be able to do their work as good as they can. This is a very difficult situation. It's an exceptional situation, not only in the public health sector, but I would say for the population as a whole. And that's why, as I said, many people here in Germany have been trying to show solidarity and creativity. And one of the areas in which they've been able to do that is precisely by supporting the work done by people working in the public health sector.
Right, Thomas, I want to thank you very much for that update, that all-important update on the German situation. Thomas Sparrow is a correspondent with our partners, DW, in Germany. Now, Britain's Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, has tested positive for coronavirus. Now, he's self-isolating, but not stepping back from his duties for the time being. Here's a video he recorded of himself saying he is showing mild symptoms of COVID-19. The UK has a total of 11,658 cases with 578 deaths.
Hi folks, I want to bring you up to speed with something that's happening today, which is that I've developed mild symptoms of the coronavirus. That's to say, a temperature and a persistent cough. And on the advice of the chief medical officer, I've taken a test that has come out positive. So I am working from home, I'm self-isolating, and that's entirely the right thing to do. But be in no doubt that I can continue, thanks to the wizardry of modern technology, to communicate with all my top team to lead the national fight back against coronavirus. And I want to thank everybody who's involved. I want to thank, of course, above all, our amazing NHS staff. It was very moving last night to join in that national clap for the NHS. But it's not just the NHS, it's our police, social care workers, teachers, everybody who works in schools, DWP staff, an amazing national effort by the public services, but also by every member of the British public who's volunteering. Incredible response. 600,000 people have volunteered to take part in a great national effort to protect people from the consequences of.
Right, let's stay in the UK and connect with my colleague Baba Tandor. Baba, it's good to see you or hear you. What is the situation where you are?
I mean, in the UK, it's more about fear and panic amongst the citizenry. I mean, the streets are getting emptier and emptier by the day. I mean, you wake up. If anybody knows South London very well and does know Mitcham, you know that Mitcham is a very busy area on every single day, even late into the night is very busy. But now Mitcham is more like a ghost town. And I've been to other areas within London and the situation is similar. What you find on the streets more these days are police personnel. The police now can stop you and ask you where you are going. And if it's not to the pharmacy, if it's not to buy essentials, or if you're not an essential or key worker, you can be fined between 60 to 80 pounds on the spot. And so that's basically what's happening. Now, if you go into the shops, there's what they call controlled entry. So there's a long queue, which is very unusual, a very long queue, and people are allowed in 2 at a time. And so there won't be more than 3 people at a till at a particular time in a shop. And then also in the shops, you see inscriptions such as this item can be sold only at 3 units per person. And so the social distancing is actually happening a lot in the shops. I mean, if you even get close to someone in the shop, they tell you, hey, excuse me, could you please keep your distance? You know what's going on. And basically that's what's happening. What you also find now is a lot more private taxis parked. And I mean, initially you wouldn't see taxis parked, on a regular working day. You see them on the streets. But now you find, I mean, where I live, for instance, you can find about 5 or 10 taxis parked at the same time. And this is because the taxis are owned by people who live in this vicinity. Taxis are just parked. You see a lot of the drivers doing more gardening with their families, with their children. Basically, that's just what's happening. And then the buses, the TfL buses are also less patronized now. You get on the bus, and instead of a full bus, or at least about expecting about the bus to be about 70 to 80% full, now you see people just scattered. So I think the maximum I've seen on the bus is 5 full, including myself. People are not patronizing the buses anymore because actually there's nowhere to go. If you're found at the wrong place at the wrong time, you could be fined, and people are trying so hard to avoid this. And then also, what they worry about the most is the fact that the NHS, the National Health Service, could get flooded and could get overwhelmed, and they're doing everything possible to ensure that that doesn't happen. So what they've done is to open up the doors to people who would like to volunteer to work for the NHS. So I think this was done on Tuesday, and as we speak, more than 1 million people have registered to volunteer for the NHS. And also the NHS is calling back retired doctors and nurses and other, allied workers who used to work with them, who have all gone on retirement. They are calling them back, just so that they could come help with the situation in case it gets out of hand. And then we are also seeing social care workers they can't stop working. More or less, they work in close relation to the NHS. So these are auxiliary helpers to nurses. So what they do is to go from house to house, or the other care homes or hospices where these social care workers do those work. Those are also categorized in the key workers zone, and so they are also having to go to work. And then let's talk a little bit about business. So right now, the shops, apart from the major shops like Asda, Iceland, Aldi, Wilco, and all of that, the other shops, the corner shops, are having to close because not many people are patronizing. Either they are closing or they find daily sales or patronage very, very low, which is not encouraging. And so they'd rather stay home than to come and open up the shops and not have anyone come by. And I'm sure, Kojo, today you've heard the breaking news, the biggest news in England at the moment, the fact that the Prime Minister Boris Johnson and his Health Secretary Matt Hancock have both tested positive. So I mean, as of yesterday, the number was 181 less than it was or than it is today. So what it means is that in 24 hours, the number of cases increased by 181 in England. Boris Johnson is having to self-isolate in 11 Downing Street. Whatever it is that he's expecting it's usually put in front of his door. So he says his food is left in front of the door. If he has any work, it's left in front of his door. I mean, he's not having contact at all, no physical contact with anyone. So is Matt Hancock, the Health Secretary. And before then, it was in the Buckingham Palace, Prince Charles, who tested positive and also has had to self-isolate in a castle. So as we speak, Prince Charles is also self-isolating in a castle. And so, Kojo, basically, this is what's been happening here. And one more thing I haven't mentioned is the fact that the money transfer service is actually reducing. I've been finding out from some of the vendors, and it's not really booming as it used to. Now they usually tell you that Western Union is actually not working at all. I don't know if it's a complete shutdown or whatever, but it's Western Union. You wouldn't get to they're not working at the moment. Their services are low. What you would find is MoneyGram, and I think other ways in which people send money. And so it's affecting almost every sector of the country. And basically, that's what I can tell you for now. So if you have anything else to ask me.
Managed to answer every single question I have without me asking a single one of them, and that's amazing. Thank you so much. That's quite a comprehensive update there. But I hope you're keeping safe, and I can't wait to get another update from you very soon. That's our colleague Tando there with every single thing you could possibly have wanted to know about the situation in the United Kingdom with COVID-19. Let's come to Africa now. South Africa has announced its first 2 deaths from coronavirus infection. Both deaths took place in hospitals in the southern province of Western Cape. Security forces have begun the enforcement of a 3-week nationwide lockdown in an effort to stem the spread of the virus. All but essential movement is forbidden, and both the army and the police are enforcing these measures. Let's go on the phones now and speak with Duduzile Ramela. Now, she's a freelance journalist. I hope I haven't massacred your name too much, Miss Ramela. Thank you for your time.
Not at all, Kojo. Fine at Toyote.
You're very kind. Okay, so tell us about the latest numbers in South Africa and how people are reacting to the first 2 deaths.
Well, as of this morning, we know that we have just over 1,000 deaths. We're yet to have a briefing where we get told just exactly how, not deaths, I beg your pardon, so that's infections. There's a positive case of people who have contracted coronavirus. Only 2 deaths, a 28-year-old and a 48-year-old from the Western Cape, as you rightfully mentioned. In terms of the reaction, I mean, you do have people who have been quite taken aback by this, but some people who have been expecting it. But the challenge remains during this lockdown enforcement. That is a big challenge, because we saw today scenes of people just going out to shops, getting their last-minute gatherings and needing to get whatever it is that they need to get for their homes. So people haven't really adhered to the lockdown rules, which are very stringent. I mean, in South Africa, you do face a fine, and you also face imprisonment of up to 6 months and more. But it's quite challenging, especially in areas like the townships of South Africa, where social distancing is a problem just because of the way the infrastructure is set up. If you have 4 people who are living in a shack, how do you self-isolate?
Yeah.
How do you social distance when you're sharing communal toilets? So we're still having very big challenges in South Africa. It's almost a tale of two cities, where you have in the suburban areas people who've obviously adhered to rules because you have the luxury of self-isolation, you have the luxury of social distancing. But there's another part in South Africa where people don't have that luxury, and it speaks a lot to the inequality of this country.
Now, Duduzile, according to the information you gave us, the 2 deaths are of people in their 20s and 40s. That's not typical, as far as we understand the mortality of this virus to be. Is there an explanation for this? Are there some pre-existing conditions with these 2 patients?
Sure. So according to another news outlet here, News 24, an article that one saw during the day, they actually got to interview the husband of the 48-year-old. They had visited a wine farm, and coming back, the lady started to develop symptoms. The husband does say that she had a clot in her lung. So he does suspect that this has got to do with a pre-existing condition. The 28-year-old is a nurse at a local hospital, at a private local hospital in the Western Cape, and with her, details are not as clear yet as to whether she had an underlying condition. And I think that's just it's right around this virus, whether it's here on the continent or whether it's elsewhere, is that we need to be, information dissemination is not a luxury. It needs to be accessible to everybody. We cannot keep saying that it is only for people who are aged or for people who are old. If you have a pre-existing condition, you are likely, you have a suppressed immune system. You're likely to fall a victim here, so we need to be super careful. But on those 2 deaths, that's all we know so far.
Right. Now, your president, Cyril Ramaphosa, announced this lockdown just a few days ago and said it would begin today. Now, around the world, leaders are being criticized for not taking such decisions earlier. What is the sentiment in South Africa? Do they feel that this decision has come just on time, or do they wish they'd been on lockdown for a while?
I beg your pardon?
No, sorry, go ahead. I think you heard me.
Right. In a minute, we're literally about 18 hours into the lockdown, with the president having addressed the country yesterday with the military, garbed in his military wear. And the reaction really in South Africa is, according to my own observation, of course, is really, it's half and half. So you have people who are really commending him and applauding him and saying he's done a really good job, he's been a very decisive leader. I mean, in South Africa, on the 5th of March, that is when the Institute for Communicable Diseases in the country actually gave us our first positive case of coronavirus. And on the 23rd, which was on Monday, that's when this lockdown was put into place, but then it only was effective from, last night, midnight, well, this morning. And so we're only 18 hours. And then you have people who are saying, well, not only presidents on the continent, or not only presidents here, but the World Health Organization perhaps needs to have guidelines that speak to the realities of people in least developed countries. And Africa, has a lot of least developed countries where our healthcare systems are really poor and really weak. So how do we build guidelines around, people who are not able to social distance? And so that has been also the criticism that perhaps our leaders needed to have molded those guidelines of the World Health Organization to suit the places that they are. Are we really responding as effectively when you look at the fact that some people are still not adhering to the lockdown, not because they don't want to, but because they really feel like they can't? There was a gentleman on television this morning who took out 8 Rand, I'm not sure, in the equivalent of CDs. I doubt that it's even like 5 or 10 CDs. And he was saying, this is all I have. When you tell me that I can't move or I can't work, what do you expect me to do? We have homeless people who are being put into buses and taken to shelters, but there's not enough space to put those people in those shelters. So we're facing a very critical situation at the moment, I think all of us.
Yeah. Talk to me about social distancing. How is South African society responding to this immediate reduction in our tactile nature? How are people adjusting to this sudden new reason to be even more separated from each other?
Sure. So you have people who have been strictly adhering to the social distancing regulations. The streets are eerily empty in the suburban areas of South Africa. And then you go to Alexander Township, which is one of the biggest townships. So if you think of a place like Kibera, but not Kibera in Kenya, but not to that magnitude, but it's something like that in terms of environment. What we're talking about, it's shacks, people who are closely next to each other, people who live 4 or 5 people in one shack. For some people, it's been quite a challenge, you know, to come through and say, okay, we'll adhere to the social distancing. You have people who are sharing communal toilets. That means that if I go in and somebody else comes in, there's not even water, so we're even having challenges of water. So you have a population that has adhered to it, and then you have a certain sector of the population that hasn't adhered to it. What does that speak to between you and I? It boggles the mind. It's probably, you know, communication, information dissemination is not enough, number one. Number two, pre-existing conditions that we have here in this country. It's not all roses in South Africa. You have a large population that is facing unequal situations where they don't even have running taps. They don't even know what they're going to be doing with that. So, you know, there has been a large sector of the population that has not adhered. We still saw long queues today, people going out onto the streets and really not adhering to social distancing. Out of a choice of their own, I don't think so.
Well, your country and ours seem to have a lot of problems in common. Let's hope that we can learn from each other. Thank you so much for your time with us. Duduzile Ramela is a journalist, a freelance journalist in South Africa. Now back to Ghana. Let's go to Parliament, where the Finance Minister's presentation on the economic impact of a possible lockdown on COVID-19 has been postponed. Correspondent Joseph Oku-Gakpo joins me live from Parliament with a bit more on that. Joseph, why? Why has this statement been postponed?
Kojo, a number of things as disclosed by the majority leader, who is also Minister for Parliamentary Affairs, Oseiche Mensah-Bonsu. He told Parliament earlier today that the President, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, will be addressing the nation today. He was asked specifically about what time President Akufo-Addo will be speaking. He said probably around 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. that he usually addresses the nation, but he wasn't exactly certain. And that the President will be addressing the nation on issues having to do with COVID-19. And so anything that the Finance Minister would have said possibly would be a subset of what the President will actually be doing. So he indicated to members of Parliament on the floor earlier today that that statement to MPs was not coming off, and that the House would have to wait for the President to speak to the nation, and that when the President is done, and there is anything in that particular statement that actually requires that the Finance Minister takes action, then the Finance Minister, Kenneth Ofori-Atta, will appear before members of Parliament in order to do that. And he indicates that him having to take that form of action, if it becomes necessary, could possibly be today. Well, not exactly today, but tomorrow, tomorrow being a Saturday, or probably the week that follows. So we wait to see how that will pan out eventually.
Now, today, the other big news was the court ruling on the NIA case. Have there been any reactions in Parliament to this ruling that the NIA can continue with their exercise?
Well, the minority leader, Harun Idrisu, has been addressing the press outside Parliament on the issue of the NIA being given the green light in order for them to continue with the registration process. He thinks it's disappointing, that's the word that he used, that he's quite disappointed in how that particular verdict did turn out. He told the media that he sees a situation where that ruling actually gives the green light to Ghanaians to probably go ahead and congregate anywhere they may want to, whether in church or anywhere else. And he thinks it's a bad decision for the country in the light of all the ongoing efforts to deal with COVID-19. He thinks that this is something that is probably in furtherance of all the ongoing efforts to get the voters ID card out, and he commented on that and indicated that at the level of the Subsidiary Legislation Committee of Parliament, the steps are ongoing to virtually pull brakes on the processes that would allow for the new registration. You know, a constitutional instrument, an amendment to the constitutional instrument that allows for that process is currently before Parliament. He says that there was a meeting of the Subsidiary Legislation Committee of Parliament yesterday, and at that level, the EC was being asked to withdraw the said amendment that would have allowed for the use of that particular NIA card for the processes of registering for a new voter's ID. So he says even in Parliament, those efforts are ongoing to virtually pull brakes on the process. And so the end game for this particular process, as he sees it, is very political and would allow for the new voters register, which he says they are pulling brakes on in Parliament. But he's not exactly happy, and he's asking the President and the officials who are managing the NIA to reconsider the decision in terms of allowing for the registration. But he's been getting responses from the Deputy Minister for Monitoring and Evaluation, who is also a Member of Parliament, William Sabi. He's also been addressing the media right here outside Parliament. And you know the NIA is one of the agencies under the Ministry of Monitoring and Evaluation. And in fact, he gives the hint that they could possibly go ahead and resume the registration after the court's decision. And he indicates that it just makes sense that they would go ahead and resume, and that the NIA had put in place all the necessary measures to protect those who are coming to the centers. He says at any point in time, no more than 5 people were registering in the eastern region. They had introduced hand sanitizers. They had ensured that there was adequate spacing. So there wasn't so much of a big deal. And that for him, they are grateful to the court that they've gotten the green light to resume that particular process.
Generally, how's Parliament looking? Do we still have reduced numbers as a result of COVID-19?
The numbers are actually not very encouraging, except that no one is too clear in their mind as to how come the numbers are low. But just a cursory look at the figures, a check at one point in time in the course of the sitting, there were just about 40 to 50 MPs on the floor out of the 275, even as they went ahead and approved a number of loans and legislations and all. The House has taken a break. They are getting back at 4 p.m. to continue with other businesses. Earlier on the floor, on the matter having to do with the lockdown, there was a push by some minority MPs, particularly Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, who is the minority spokesperson on foreign affairs, asking that, you know, the House is going on a break next week, Saturday. They are sitting tomorrow, Saturday. They'll be back to work on Monday, all through to Saturday, and then they would get a break. When the majority leader outlined the business for next week, it didn't specifically include anything on a conversation having to do with COVID-19. And Okudzeto-Ablakwa requested that space be made to, first of all, get the Minister for Health to come update MPs on the number of infections and what is being done to deal with the problem as he's done in the past. And also that the House makes a space to debate the issue of whether there should be a national lockdown, because that's probably where the executive can be getting the best form of advice. But the majority leader indicated that there are a ton of issues having to do with COVID-19, including questions for the minister and a number of others, and that leadership of the House is still discussing what the modality should be in terms of any possible conversation on COVID-19 going into next week. So he says that space will be made, but until then, he's not exactly allowing for that conversation on the floor of Parliament now as we speak.
Joseph Opoku-Gakpo, thank you ever so much once again for your update to us on the happenings in Parliament. Right, well, we're going to take a short break, but when we come back, how do you stay sane in the turbulence of coronavirus? We're going to focus on mental health as we connect with experts to answer your questions. The number, as always, 0540 10 9009. WhatsApp me now. You're welcome back. Now, immigration officers at the country's border posts have received some protective products to enable them stay safe as they guard our borders and curb a spread of COVID-19. Multi-pack manufacturers of 5-Star energy drink and Perla mineral water on Friday donated 3,000 bottles of water, 10,000 bundles of gloves, 720 pieces of sanitizers, and 480 bottles of hand soap to the officers. Head of Marketing and Sales at Multipack, Rabes Bourgi, says it's important that the immigration officers are protected from COVID-19 to enable them work effectively.
At the Ghana Immigration Service to support actually our country to avoid or to kick out this pandemic coronavirus. We are here together today, one hand, to kick out this, and then we support to our people, to our country, to our nation. God bless Ghana.
Now, the Deputy Controller General in charge of Finance and Administration at the Ghana Immigration Service, Judith Gokutu Lomo, noted that the products will facilitate their work.
I say thank you, and I promise the company that we would ensure these items get to all our borders, our 48 borders, approved borders, and this include airport, Aflao, the seaport, Tema, and Takoradi, and our district offices, which are also 42 in number, and the 16 regional capitals. We have managed to procure some in the past. We continue to procure. We have received some support from Ghana Health Service. And this is also adding to the support we have received so far. You all agree with me that these items are for everyday use, and some of them are even disposable. So we may even be procuring more and be requesting for more.
Now, as the debate over the lockdown of Ghana over the coronavirus rages, health authorities in the Ashanti region are asking people with chronic health conditions to self-isolate. Regional Director of Health, Dr. Emmanuel Tinkrang, says people above 60 years are vulnerable to the disease and should stay home to avoid contracting the virus.
If you have any of these chronic diseases, then your immunity will be very low, and it's likely that when you get the infection, it will be very difficult to manage. Hypertension, diabetes, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, we call it chronic bronchitis, emphysema, asthma, all this can predispose you to high mortality if you get the condition. So as much as possible, if you have any of these chronic conditions, you make sure that you adhere strictly by the rules. We will suggest that if you don't have anything at all to do, stay home. If you are more than 60 years, you are part of it. So we are encouraging our mothers, our grandmothers to stay home. And then if they stay home, don't come into contact with the aged. For instance, your grandchildren comes back from maybe somewhere outside and other things. It will be better for the aged to be what? Self-isolating at this time, because it's always very difficult to manage their cases. So let us support our aged, especially. We will love them, but this time the social distancing should be the key, so that we distance ourselves from them.
You're welcome back. Now, earlier, we were seeking to connect with a psychologist to help us understand the effect of coronavirus on the psyche of nations since it broke out last year. Akuhefron joins us now via Skype. I hope you can hear us. Good afternoon. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's all right. That's all right. It's good to speak to you. Now, this is clearly a big headache. Tell us, what exactly is such a massive global health pandemic doing to the psyche of the public?
Generally, it's creating fear, A lot of people are scared. A lot of people are even getting into depression as a result of the fact that they don't seem to know how to go about resolving this problem.
Now,
they feel that there may not be a resolve, and due to that, it is causing a lot of problems for them.
Me about the interventions. Are there any at the moment when you look at our healthcare system? Do you see provision being made for the mental health of Ghanaians in these times?
Well, you know, not all of us are mentally strong. When I say mentally strong, I'm not talking about mad people. What I'm saying is that not all of us have the capacity to listen to such things and cope. Therefore, knowing ourselves, we need to know what we can take and what we cannot take. In that bit, we need to know the amount of information we can take a day. Some of us wake up in the morning and go to the radio and want to listen to everything that is going on concerning the coronavirus, and it makes us sick, feel sick rather. So we need to know ourselves and know what we need to do. Again, some people I have had the opportunity to speak to are of the view that those who came in earlier on before the quarantine period started may have come in with a virus and therefore are causing sort of what do I say, more like a scare to them because they don't know whether they have the virus or not. And if they do, how are they going to get the issue resolved? So that is another thing that they are scared of. But generally, I think that we need to adhere to the sanitary rules that we've been given and protect ourselves as much as possible. If we don't have to go to town, we shouldn't bother to.
Now, at the moment, I wonder whether there are structures available for members of the public if they start to feel anxious, if they are worried about their mental health. I know somebody who's paralyzed with fear, unable to leave her home since the first cases were reported in Ghana. What options are available to them? What can they do?
We have the Ghana Psychological Association. We have the Ghana Psychology Council. We have the Ghana National Association of Certified Counselors, who are nationwide. So if any of these people can access or have access to any of these people, specialists, they would be able to see them through their problems. There is no need to fear or panic. We need to send that information deep down into each and every one of us, that there's no need to fear, because the recovery rate is quite high, you know. So we shouldn't fear, we shouldn't panic. We should, and those who have been playing prank on the telephone should stop, so that it reduces the number of people who are in fear. Again, I think our level of education generally about the virus has to be increased in order for people to understand the way it works and hence reduce their level of fear.
Right. Now, in the meantime, what are some of the basic tips that you would give people to use as coping mechanisms when they find themselves feeling a bit anxious and are unable to access any of the emergency numbers, for example?
Okay. So first and foremost, we need to know our level of mental strength, like I've said before. Then we can know what we can take and what we cannot take. If we think we are full, what we can do is to listen to music that will soothe us, or listen to something else aside coronavirus. Unfortunately, almost every station you turn to has some coronavirus issues going on. However, we can always watch cartoons, do things that are not coronavirus inclined, so that those can help us. I mean, let's socialize with our families. I realize that another thing is that a lot of parents are having problems coping with their children.
Yes.
Because so many of us are not used to living with them the whole day. So this is a time to bond as a family. Let's turn off the television if that is going to cause us fear and panic. And let's bond with our children. Let's tell them stories about things that happened when we were young. Let them tell us what they have been experiencing as children in school, wherever they've been. I mean, let's socialize with them. Let's socialize with our spouses, and let's have fun. Let's have fun. It's a troubling time, but we can convert it to a time of fun if we want to.
There's a lot of debate about whether there will be the announcement of a lockdown or not. And even in the absence of that, there are many people who are either in mandatory quarantine because they traveled from outside the country, or in self-quarantine because they may have come in contact with a known case, or perhaps they are non-essential workers at their workplace and so are stuck at home. Cabin fever is another big threat to them. Any ways of coping with that?
With the fever?
Cabin fever, being stuck indoors between the confines of four walls. Those on quarantine.
We should learn to cope with our space. And also, since we haven't been locked down yet, we should at least do some exercising around, not too far from our homes, but just around. Those who are in mandatory quarantine should be able to exercise a little in the room, do things that would help them cope, help them know that they're still alive. And of course, appreciate the fact that we're still alive, because some people are gone.
There is a lot to celebrate. Aku Hefron is a psychologist. We thank you so much for your time and for your tips. In the meantime, though, we can go to Kumasi. The latest is unfolding. The Kumasi Central Prisons have sent an SOS to the public for sanitizers and other preventive material to aid in the fight against coronavirus. Authorities say demand for the products has outstripped supply, putting the health of about 2,000 inmates and 300 officers at risk. The facility, built in 1910 to house only 700 inmates, remains one of the most congested prisons in the country. The appeal comes as President Akufo-Addo pardons 800 inmates across the country as part of efforts to decongest the prisons amidst coronavirus pandemic scare. Chief Superintendent Hannah Hilda Ewuame is in charge of counseling and education.
The sanitizer, the gloves and other things. I think we still need more. Looking at our numbers, we need more. Commander has supplied us gloves. You go to where they are doing the search, the officers are using gloves, the masks and all that. Other vantage points, they have all that, but I think we still need more. So other individuals can also come on board to help us. I always say that one thing is, this is a community on its own, almost 2,000. When they go out, they are coming back to you. We won't say because of coronavirus, somebody's discharges is due, we'll still keep the person here. They'll definitely come back home. So if there's any assistance you can give us, come on board and come and support us. We still need more.
Taken delivery of 1,000 disposable personal protective clothing and some 500 boxes of gloves worth 195,000 Ghana cedis to help in its management of coronavirus cases there. The facility, which is one of the two main holding centers in the country, has come under pressure following a surge in confirmed cases. Ghana's only owned oil exploration and production company, Aker Energy, donated the items following an appeal by the hospital. Khadija Amwa is the country director of Aker Energy.
Aker Energy to say thank you. We know that government has put in a lot of effort to control and also make it possible to resolve this issue with COVID-19 in Ghana. And this is just to support government, and as a socially responsible corporate entity and as a partner of Ghana, we're here to say thank you very much to you and your team. We know that you are risking a lot by being in the front line. We appreciate it. God bless you. And this is from Aker Energy Ghana. We have 1,000 pieces of disposable PPEs and 500 boxes of gloves. And we hope it helps. Thank you very much.
Right, the medical director at the Greater Accra Regional Hospital, Dr. Emmanuel Srophenyo, received the items and called on the public to emulate this gesture.
Greater Accra Regional Hospital to express my sincere thanks to this gesture. Really, we've received a couple of donations, but the particular things that really has been a challenge to us has been the disposable gowns, because you know, before the staffs will prepare themselves and then enter where the patients are, they have to be in these outfits. And you know, you wear these outfits only once at a time, and once you wear, you discard. So it means that the usage is very high, you know, and so it's been a big drain and on our own resources and also on the resources of the government. And it is in this respect that we are so grateful that you've made this presentation and you made this donation to us. We can only assure you that we'll put them to good use. We will make sure that they are not abused, they are used the way they are expected to be used. We also want to use this opportunity to thank the general public, those who have supported us already, but we are asking for more support, because this is a fight that we are fighting together. It is either we fight and win together or we lose it together.
Right then, more on the pulse after this. Stay with us. Now, WaterAid Ghana, with funding from Hong Kong, Shanghai Banking Corporation, for the past 2 years has been supporting some communities in the Upper West region. The projects are in the areas of improving healthcare, water, sanitation and hygiene. JoyNews' Upper West regional correspondent, who visited some of the projects in the Wa municipality, reports that the construction of those projects have improved significantly service delivery and also positively impacted the lives of the people.
WaterAid Ghana's country program strategy
2016-2021 in light of the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, and WaterAid's global strategy for everyone, everywhere to have access to water, sanitation, and hygiene wash by 2030. Over the years, WaterAid Ghana has provided services to over 2 million people in some of the poorest communities in the country. Chere, located in the one municipality of the Upper West region, is one of 25 communities benefiting from projects from WaterAid Ghana with funding from Hong Kong Shanghai Banking Corporation, HSBC. Inside the Chere Health Center, a mechanized borehole powered by solar, an incinerator, and a toilet constructed for use by nurses and their clients. One Municipal Health Promotion Officer, Abdullahi Kulio, threw more light on the projects.
So now water is very, very important, and WaterAid have realized this, and they came to our aid to build a very giant water facility with a big poly tank as reservoir, and then a solar system that is pumping the water automatically. So before now, we used to have challenges at some of our health facilities. Now WaterAid have intervened in this direction, not only the water. They organize series of trainings on WASH IPC, that's WASH Fit and WASH IPC for our staff, on how to use these facilities, how to take care of clients, and then how to take care of their own selves when it comes to what? WASH activities. So WaterAid has intervened, organized series of trainings for our staff, and then those that are delivering services at the community level, and then they followed up by what? Building these facilities for us to make the package complete.
Before the construction of the solar mechanized borehole, nurses at the Chere Health Center used to compete with the town folks for water, a situation which midwife Sarah Chiruwa said made them to lose most of their productive times looking for water.
At first, we used to go out to fetch water. We waste much time there. There's a borehole down there. We used to go there to fetch the water. You go and be in a kiwa for a longer time before you get even one bucket of water to come and bath and come to work. At first, we used to go to work late. Our woman will come and deliver. How to watch the instrument, it was problem. How to allow them to bath at the facility, it was a problem.
However, there's a wind of change.
But thanks to our WaterAid, now we have water everywhere, 24 hours. We get water to do whatever we want to do, including even our cottages. We have water running 24 hours. So for now, we don't have problem on our water system. We have water everywhere. Hand washing and everything is going on successfully.
Make no mistake, this is not a crematorium, but rather an incinerator. It's one of the facilities put up by WaterAid at the Chere Health Center to aid in the burning of solid waste.
One Municipal Environmental Health Officer, Mona Baba Paul, elaborate on how helpful the incinerator has been for them.
And if you look at it, this is the hatch, this is the main door. You open here, and then you drop whatever material you want to burn into this particular chamber. It is a bar incinerator. It is created with iron rods, bar. The material is dropped here, and then you burn. And when you are burning, you now close it and burn. We have a chimney on top where the smoke would gush out. After incinerating, then the clinker or the ash that is left over now drops under these vaults. We have a hatch door here where later we collect these things and then we safely bury them dispose them. In most of the facilities we have some pits that are created for some of these things. And because the quantity is just limited, what we sometimes have is inside these ashes we have the droplets of the needles and syringes that are not being able to burn all. So you now collect all and you safely dispose them. So this hatch door is always closed, such that nothing goes inside. It's after you burn, then you now safely remove the ash there, and then you now dispose of them.
One thing unique about projects initiated by WaterAid Ghana is that they are climate change friendly.
When you look at the power supply or the source of the power that is pumping the water into the reservoir, I think that we have been talking about going green, and solar energy is one of the recommended energy sources. So I think that WaterAid is one NGO that has climate change in mind when they are undertaking their projects. So that is how come that they are not talking of national grid, but they have brought the power source that is environmental friendly, which is the solar source of power.
Some 15 kilometers away from Chere lies these two communities, Grumun and Nyolo. In the past, the only option for them to attend nature's call was the free range, and as a result, the communities were inundated with feces.
Did pre-triggering where we met most of the community elders, did triggering with the community members, and then we kick-started the project where community members, realizing that they were eating their own shit, which was disgusting, and had to take an initiative of owning a household latrine. So they all did. We didn't prescribe any kind of latrine. They themselves decided that they would have to dig their own latrines with the locally made materials available materials that they have. So if you even see those that probably collapsed, the people have done what? They've done, made efforts to put up new structure, very resilient structures. We've trained some latrine artisans in the community. In most of the communities that we are working, WaterAid assisted us, and we've trained.
Right, I'm sure many of you have seen the challenges that are trending on social media, including the Stay Home Challenge, which has been trending for weeks now. This is all to keep many of us busy at home during the self-quarantine period. But there's also a challenge around the world that is meant to give hope to the world in this troubling time. Nancy Emefajiradosi has the rest of that rather uplifting story.
There's no heaven, it's easy if you try.
No hell below us,
Above us only sky. Imagine all the people living.
First came the Gal Gadot-led celebratory rendition of John Legend's Imagine, which featured Sia, Nora and others singing along to keep hope alive. But now many around the world are rallying around Tyler Perry's He's Got the Whole World in His Hands.
He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands.
It has generated a social media challenge at this time. The hashtag He's Got the Whole World Challenge is now trending.
He's got you and me, brother. In his hands, he's got you and me, brother. In his hands, he's got the whole world in his hands. El mundo entero, en sus manos tiene el mundo entero. En sus manos tiene todo en su poder. He's got the little bitty babies in his hands. He's got the little bitty babies in his hands. He's got the little bitty babies in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands.
He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands.
He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands.
hands, he's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands.
Many Ghanaians have joined in. Kwame Eugene.
He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands.
Efia.
He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands.
Kiddy.
He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands.
Becca.
He's got the whole world in essence. He's got my family and your family. In essence, he's got the whole world. In essence, he's got the whole world in his hands.
Guess what? Ghana's First Lady, Rebecca Akufo-Addo, has not been left out.
He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole wide world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands.
The song has also been sung in many dialects, with the latest in Ga from Israelite. Definitely, he's got the whole world in his hands.
He hear me kata lesi me onune wiasi sheninsa. He hear me kata lesi me.
No, I'm not going to sing. You haven't done anything to deserve that. You've been great. We're so glad you joined us for another week of The Pulse. We're back next week with even more. Stay safe out there, stay distant, and definitely don't touch your face. My name is Kojo Jansen. It's been a pleasure. Have a wonderful evening. Good night.